I've always been fascinated by mirrors. As a child, I would spend hours staring into them, captivated by the way they captured my image and reflected my world back at me. But as I grew older, that fascination morphed into something darker, a creeping unease that settled in the pit of my stomach whenever I caught a glimpse of my reflection. It wasn't just the fear of seeing something out of place. It was the nagging feeling that perhaps mirrors were more than mere glass and silver backing. They felt alive, as if they held secrets just beyond my reach. It all started one rainy afternoon when I was home alone. The storm raged outside, lightning illuminating my room in flashes that danced across the walls. I had just finished reading a particularly chilling horror novel, and the atmosphere was thick with tension. Seeking distraction, I wandered into my bathroom where an antique mirror hung above the sink. It had belonged to my grandmother, a woman known for her superstitions and tales of the supernatural. As I approached the mirror, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me. The ornate frame, carved with intricate designs of vines and flowers, seemed almost to breathe with life. I leaned closer, peering into its depths as if expecting to find something unusual. My reflection stared back at me, my wide eyes framed by damp hair and a pale face. But there was something off about it. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a shadow move behind me in the reflection. Something dark and formless that sent chills racing down my spine. I whipped round, heart pounding in my chest, but there was nothing there. Only the empty bathroom with its peeling wallpaper and flickering light bulb. I laughed nervously at myself. After all, it was just my imagination, running wild after reading that book. But as I turned back to the mirror, my laughter died in my throat. My reflection smiled back at me, a wide, unnatural grin that didn't match my own expression of confusion and fear. My heart raced as I blinked rapidly, hoping to dispel this trick of light and shadow, but it remained, that sinister smile stretching wider, until it seemed to split my reflection's face in half. "Stop it," I whispered to myself, shaking my head, as if to clear away the fog of fear clouding my thoughts. But deep down, I felt an unsettling truth. That smile wasn't mine. It belonged to something else entirely. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the bath mat as I tried to escape the mirror's gaze. My mind raced with thoughts of what my grandmother had told me about mirrors, that they were windows to other worlds or portals where lost souls lingered. Had she been right all along? Was there something trapped within this glass prison? I took a deep breath and stepped closer once more, determined to confront whatever was happening. But as I leaned in again, ready to challenge this malevolent force, a sudden crash of thunder shook the house. The lights flickered violently before plunging me into darkness. In those moments of uncertainty, I felt an overwhelming urge to flee, to run from this cursed object that had suddenly become so much more than just a mirror. But curiosity held me captive. What if there was something waiting for me on the other side? What if it had been trying to communicate all along? As I stood there in the darkened bathroom, heart racing and breath shallow, I realized that this was only the beginning of a series of events that would unravel everything I thought I knew about myself and about mirrors. Little did I know then that each reflection would draw me deeper into its enigmatic world. A world filled with whispers from beyond and shadows lurking just out of sight. And as much as I wanted to turn away and forget what had happened in that bathroom on that stormy afternoon. Fate had other plans. This is where our journey begins. A journey through reflections that reveal truths better left hidden and stories waiting to be told. Feel free to adjust any part of this introduction according to your vision for the video. After that unsettling experience in my grandmother's bathroom, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about mirrors. I began to notice them everywhere. At home, in stores, even in the reflective surfaces of windows. Each time I caught a glimpse of my reflection, an icy shiver would run down my spine, as if the glass held secrets I wasn't meant to uncover. It wasn't long before I learned about a particular mirror that had become the talk of my small town, a mirror rumored to be haunted. The story went that it once belonged to a woman named Eliza, who had lived in a grand old house at the edge of town. Eliza was known for her beauty and charm, but she was also whispered to have dabbled in dark arts. After her mysterious disappearance, her mirror was left behind, and strange occurrences began to plague anyone who dared to look into it. Intrigued by the legend, I decided to investigate. I gathered my courage and ventured to the old house one late afternoon, armed with nothing but my phone for light and a notebook to jot down my findings. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced across the ground as I approached the dilapidated structure. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the rustling leaves and distant cawing of crows. As I stepped inside, a chill enveloped me. Dust motes floated in the fading light, and the scent of mildew hung heavy in the air. The once grand foyer was now a shadow of its former self. Cracked walls adorned with peeling wallpaper, and furniture draped in white sheets like ghosts waiting for their time to return. I made my way through the house, heart racing with each creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. Finally, I found it, the infamous mirror, leaning against a wall in what used to be Eliza's bedroom. It was larger than I had imagined, its ornate frame intricately carved with designs that seemed to twist and writhe when viewed from certain angles. I approached cautiously, feeling an inexplicable pull toward it. As I stood before the mirror, I felt an odd sensation wash over me, a mix of dread and curiosity. My reflection stared back at me, but there was something else lurking just beyond it. The air grew heavy, as if charged with electricity. Taking a deep breath, I reached out to touch the glass. Just as my fingers brushed against its surface, a sudden chill swept through the room, causing me to pull back instinctively. In that moment, I thought I saw a figure behind me in the reflection. A fleeting glimpse of a woman dressed in white with long dark hair cascading around her shoulders. Startled, I turned around quickly, but there was no one there, only shadows clinging to the corners of the room. My heart raced as I turned back to face the mirror. This time, however, my reflection had changed. It appeared hazy and distorted, as if something was trying to break through from within. "Who are you?" I whispered into the stillness. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, words began to form on the surface of the glass, written not with ink, but with some dark energy that seemed alive. "Help me," it spelled out in shaky letters before fading away like mist. I stumbled back in shock. Was this some kind of trick? My mind raced with possibilities. Was Eliza trapped within this mirror? Or was it merely an illusion created by my own fear? Despite every instinct telling me to run away from this haunted relic, Something compelled me to stay. I decided then that I needed to learn more about Eliza and her tragic fate. Over the next few days, I delved into town records and spoke with elderly residents who remembered her story. They told me tales of love lost and betrayal, how Eliza had fallen for a man who never returned her affections, and how she had become consumed by despair after his departure. One resident recounted how Eliza had been seen wandering near her home just days before she vanished. Her eyes filled with sorrow as she gazed into her beloved mirror. They say she could see him there, they whispered ominously, that he would come back for her if only she waited long enough. The more I learned about Eliza's life and death, the more drawn I became to that mirror. The very object that had once reflected her beauty, but now seemed to hold her spirit captive. It became clear that she was not merely haunting this place. She was trapped between worlds, longing for release. That night, unable to resist any longer, I returned to Eliza's house armed with candles and sage, tools meant for protection against malevolent spirits. As darkness enveloped me once more within those decaying walls, I lit the candles around the mirror and began to speak aloud. "Eliza?" I called softly into the stillness. "I know your pain. You don't have to be trapped here anymore." The air grew colder, as if responding to my words. Shadows flickered along the walls while my reflection wavered in front of me like rippling water. Suddenly, a whisper echoed through the room, a soft voice filled with longing and despair. "Help me. Find him." My heart raced as realization dawned on me. Eliza wasn't just seeking freedom. She wanted closure, a chance to reunite with her lost love, or perhaps even confront him about his betrayal. With newfound determination coursing through my veins, I promised her that I would help her find peace. But as those words left my lips, something shifted within the mirror. A dark energy surged forth like a wave crashing against fragile shores. In that moment of connection between our worlds, I felt myself being pulled towards the glass as if it were a portal opening wide beneath me. Panic surged through me as tendrils of shadow reached out from within its depths, wrapping around my wrists like icy chains. "Don't leave!" Eliza's voice cried out desperately from beyond. I fought against the pull with every ounce of strength within me, but felt myself slipping away into darkness. A void where reality blurred into nightmare. Just when it seemed all hope was lost. This segment sets up an intriguing narrative filled with suspense and emotional depth while continuing your horror stories themes surrounding mirrors and their supernatural implications. Feel free to modify any part as needed. After my harrowing encounter with Eliza's haunted mirror, I found myself unable to shake the feeling that something had changed within me. The connection I had felt with her spirit lingered, casting a shadow over my daily life. I began to notice subtle shifts in my own reflection, details that seemed slightly off, as if the mirror was revealing parts of me I had never seen before. It was a few weeks later when I decided to visit a local antique shop, drawn by an inexplicable urge to explore more about mirrors and their hidden truths. The shop was cluttered with forgotten relics, each with its own story waiting to be uncovered. As I wandered through the dimly lit aisles, my fingers brushed against various objects, old clocks, dusty books, and tarnished silverware, until I stumbled upon another mirror. This one was smaller, but intricately designed, with a frame adorned in swirling patterns reminiscent of vines and leaves. It caught my eye immediately, and before I knew it, I was standing in front of it, entranced. The shopkeeper approached me, her eyes narrowing as she studied my reaction. "Ah, you found the reflection mirror," she said in a low voice. "It's said to show more than just your image." I felt a chill run down my spine at her words. "What do you mean?" I asked, unable to tear my gaze away from the glass. "They say it reveals your true self," she replied cryptically. "But be warned, what you see may not always be what you expect." Ignoring the warning bells ringing in my mind, I purchased the mirror and took it home. As I hung it in my bedroom, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Would it reveal secrets about myself? Would it show me something profound? Little did I know that what awaited me was far more sinister than mere self-discovery. That night I stood before the reflection mirror, heart pounding with both excitement and trepidation. The room was dimly lit by a single lamp, casting long shadows across the walls. As I gazed into the glass, my reflection stared back at me. A familiar face framed by dark hair and wide eyes. But something felt different. I leaned closer, scrutinizing every detail. My reflection appeared slightly blurred around the edges, as if it was struggling to maintain its form. Then suddenly, it shifted. My reflection smiled, a wide grin that didn't match my own expression of confusion and fear. "Stop it," I murmured under my breath, shaking my head in disbelief. But the smile only widened further, stretching unnaturally across its face. "Why are you afraid?" it whispered softly, though its lips didn't move in sync with mine. "You know what you truly desire." I stumbled backward in shock. This wasn't just a trick of light. This was something else entirely. A malevolent force trying to manipulate me through my own image. "Get away from me," I shouted at the mirror, but instead of retreating, my reflection stepped forward, as if breaking free from its glass confines. It reached out toward me with an outstretched hand, a hand that looked like mine, but felt foreign and wrong. "Join me," it beckoned seductively. "Together, we can be free from all this pain." I felt an overwhelming urge to reach out and take its hand. Part of me longed for escape from the turmoil that had consumed my life since discovering Eliza's story. But another part screamed for me to resist, to fight against this dark temptation that threatened to pull me into its depths. "No!" I cried out defiantly, shaking my head as tears streamed down my cheeks. "You're not real." In that moment of defiance, something shifted within the mirror again. My reflection's eyes darkened until they were nothing but voids. Pits of despair that seemed to draw in all light around them. The room grew colder, as shadows flickered along the walls like whispers echoing through time. "You think you can escape?" it hissed through clenched teeth. "You're already trapped within your own mind." Panic surged through me as I realized how true those words were. Ever since encountering Eliza's haunted mirror, I had felt increasingly lost, caught between worlds of reality and illusion. This reflection wasn't just a figment of my imagination. It represented everything I feared about myself. The doubts, regrets, and insecurities that haunted me day after day. With newfound clarity amidst the chaos swirling around me, I took a deep breath and stepped back from the mirror's grasping hands. "You don't control me," I shouted defiantly. As if struck by lightning, my reflection recoiled violently before shattering into thousands of shards, each piece reflecting fragments of memories long buried within me. Moments of joy overshadowed by sorrow, laughter drowned out by tears, dreams crushed beneath the weight of expectations. I fell to my knees before the broken glass scattered across the floor, each shard glinting like stars fallen from grace, and sobbed uncontrollably as realization dawned upon me. This battle wasn't just against an evil reflection, it was against myself, the parts of me I had tried so desperately to hide away. In that moment of vulnerability and honesty, something shifted within me once more. A warmth began to radiate from deep inside as acceptance washed over me like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Perhaps this darkness didn't have to define who I was. Perhaps embracing both light and shadow could lead to healing rather than destruction. As I sat there amidst the shards of glass reflecting fragmented pieces of who I used to be, I felt a sense of liberation begin to blossom within. A promise that no matter how twisted or broken things seemed at times, there was always hope for renewal if one dared to confront their demons head on. With trembling hands, I gathered up the shards carefully, their sharp edges glinting ominously under the dim light, and resolved never again to let fear dictate my choices or allow darkness to cloud my vision. But even as I cleaned up the remnants of what had once been a portal into despair, this segment explores themes of self-reflection and inner turmoil while maintaining an eerie atmosphere consistent with your horror narrative. Feel free to adjust any part as needed. After my harrowing encounter with the reflection mirror, I thought I had finally escaped the clutches of darkness that had plagued me for so long. I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. However, the sense of relief was short-lived. The remnants of Eliza's haunted mirror still lingered in my mind, whispering secrets I couldn't quite grasp. It was as if I had awakened something deep within, a curse that refused to let go. A few days later, I began experiencing strange occurrences in my home. It started with subtle things: objects misplaced, shadows darting just out of sight, and an unsettling feeling that someone was watching me. I brushed it off as paranoia, remnants of my recent experiences with mirrors and their dark allure. But one night, as I lay in bed, a cold breeze swept through my room, sending chills down my spine. I sat up, heart racing, the air felt thick with dread. Glancing toward my bedroom mirror, the one I had hung after purchasing it, I noticed something odd. The reflection wasn't just showing my room. It seemed to ripple like water, disturbed by unseen forces. My heart pounded as I watched in horror as a figure began to materialize within the glass. It was a woman, her features indistinct but familiar enough to send a jolt of recognition through me. Eliza. Her eyes bore into mine with an intensity that made me shiver. She looked desperate, her mouth moving silently, as if trying to communicate something urgent. "Help me," she mouthed, and in that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. The curse wasn't broken. It had merely shifted its focus from her to me. I stumbled backward, fear coursing through my veins. "What do you want from me?" I shouted at the mirror, but Eliza's image faded away, like smoke dissipating in the wind. The room fell silent once more, but the air remained charged with tension. Days turned into weeks, and my life became a waking nightmare. Each night brought new visions. Eliza, appearing in mirrors everywhere I went, her sorrowful gaze pleading for release. I tried to ignore it, but the weight of a curse pressed down on me like a heavy fog that wouldn't lift. Desperate for answers, I returned to the antique shop where I had found the reflection mirror. The shopkeeper greeted me with a knowing look as if she had been expecting my return. You've seen her, she said softly, her voice tinged with sympathy. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of despair settle over me once more. What does she want? Why is this happening? The curse is tied to her unfulfilled desires, the shopkeeper explained. Eliza was never able to find peace in life or death. Her spirit lingers because she seeks closure, something that can only be achieved by confronting her past. But how? I asked desperately. How can I help her when she haunts my every waking moment? The shopkeeper studied me for a moment before speaking again. You must find out what happened to her, the truth behind her disappearance, and help her confront it. Only then can you both be free from this curse. With renewed determination, I set out to uncover Eliza's past once more. Armed with old newspaper clippings and town records, I pieced together fragments of her life. Her love for a man named Thomas, who had vanished without a trace shortly before she disappeared herself. As I delved deeper into their story, I discovered whispers of betrayal, rumors that Thomas had left town for another woman, and that Eliza had been heartbroken and abandoned. It became clear that she hadn't just lost a lover. She had lost hope itself. One evening, while researching at the local library, an elderly woman approached me, a resident who had known Eliza personally. Her eyes were filled with sorrow as she recounted tales of Eliza's beauty and kindness, but also her deep despair after Thomas's departure. She would sit by that mirror for hours, the woman said softly, tears glistening in her eyes. She believed he would return if she waited long enough. But he never did. My heart sank at this revelation. Eliza's longing had trapped her spirit within that cursed mirror, a prison built from love and loss. Determined to help Eliza find closure and break the curse once and for all, I decided to hold a séance, a way to connect with her spirit directly and allow her to confront Thomas's betrayal once and for all. With candles lit and protective symbols drawn around me, I sat before the reflection mirror one last time. Eliza, I called softly into the stillness of my room. I know your pain. You don't have to suffer anymore. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Shadows flickered around me as if responding to my words. The mirror began to ripple again, and soon Eliza's image appeared once more, this time clearer than ever before. Help me, she whispered urgently, her voice echoing through the room like a haunting melody. Confront him, I urged gently. You deserve to know the truth. As if compelled by some unseen force, Eliza's expression shifted from desperation to determination. Show me, she pleaded. With a deep breath, I focused on Thomas's image, the man who had betrayed her trust, and called forth his spirit from beyond the veil. In an instant, he appeared beside Eliza, within the mirror, a shadowy figure filled with regret. Eliza, he began hesitantly but faltered under her piercing gaze. Why did you leave me? She demanded fiercely, tears streaming down her face as emotions surged between them like electricity. I thought it was best for you, he replied weakly. I never meant to hurt you. But as they spoke, something shifted within the mirror. A swirling vortex of emotions began to form around them. Love mingled with betrayal. Hope intertwined with despair, as their connection deepened through shared memories, long buried beneath layers of pain. Face your choices, I urged them both softly from outside the spectral realm, my voice echoing through time itself as they confronted their past together. In that moment of reckoning, when truths were laid bare, the air crackled with energy, until finally A blinding light erupted from within the mirror, a brilliant flash, illuminating everything around us before fading into nothingness. As darkness enveloped me momentarily, when my vision cleared again, I found myself alone in my bedroom once more. The reflection mirror, now shattered into countless shards scattered across the floor like stars fallen from grace. But there was no sign of Eliza or Thomas anymore. The curse was broken, their spirits freed at last from their torment. I knelt amidst the shards, each piece reflecting fragments of memories both beautiful and painful, and felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over me like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. In that moment, I realized that mirrors are not just objects reflecting our images. They are portals into our souls, windows revealing truths we often hide away out of fear or shame, but also reminders that healing is possible if we dare confront our pasts head on. With newfound clarity coursing through my veins, I gathered up each shard carefully, vowing never again to let darkness cloud my vision or allow fear dictate my choices. As dawn broke outside, I stepped out into a world filled with light, a world where shadows no longer held power over me, where reflections revealed not only who we are, but who we can become when we embrace both light and dark within ourselves. And so began my journey toward healing. Not just for myself, but also for those whose stories linger on, in forgotten mirrors waiting patiently for someone brave enough to listen. This final segment wraps up your horror story while providing closure and emotional depth. Feel free to modify any part according to your vision.